Welcome to my first park in Jurassic World Evolution 3, Jurassic Park Paradise. I'm determined to make this my best park I've ever made in this game series, by including stuff for guests, for dinosaurs, and everything else in between. I bet you're all itching to see how this park goes, so without further ado, let's jump into it with a speed build for Jurassic Park Paradise. Welcome everyone. So, like any other park, we want to start off with a focal point. I am choosing the Jurassic Park Visitor Center over here. Again, you can make your own visitor center with the new modular building tools. However, I really just want to get into this game and make a park, not really as fast as I can, but as efficiently as I can. And honestly, spending an entire episode on building the visitor center, it's not really my cup of tea, especially when you see how much we do today. Evolution squared, I am not the crazy path lady. However, I do enjoy a good path every here and again, so I'm doing my best to kind of make this park layout as kind of guest-centric as possible. Again, I feel like Jurassic World Evolution, especially Jurassic World Evolution 3, you are building in such a big scale that you're really ignoring the guests. So part of this build today that I want to focus on is really capturing what makes these guests, like, I don't know, what gives them the most amount of enjoyment. Now, of course, I want this to be the focal point right when you come into the park, so ideally you would come in through any other means of transportation, kind of like planes or stuff like that, something that's a little bit more efficient than helicopters. However, we just have to have that iconic helicopter coming down in here. But what I'm actually doing back here is kind of extending this area out just a little bit. I assume there'd be a few facilities in the back of the visitor center. I assume it would be a kind of very busy kind of area, and I apologize, I really wasn't able to capture all the footage of that waterfall, but we do have that waterfall right in the background with the new waterfall tools. Again, I was kind of building this like off to the side. I really wasn't expecting much out of this project. However, that's what I made. Now, the whole goal for this first episode is making this central guest area. Now, part of what I imagine Jurassic Park Paradise to be like is this very enclosed guest area where it's very safe, the guests really aren't doing too much. Here I am playing Pokemon. And because I want the guests to feel enclosed, I just go in with a bunch of, I think it's like the third tier offenses. It's nothing really too crazy. It just gives this nice kind of surrounding look. It makes it feel really safe. Now, we do have a standout attraction in this episode today, but I did want to make room for other ones as well. So you can see I did have the Jurassic Park Jeep Tour right all the way up there. And I also have the Innovation Center. I know I'm kind of mixing the Jurassic World and Jurassic Park vibes in here, but honestly, I don't really care because I just like the look of the Innovation Center. I think it's such a beautiful building. And from there, we start to connect all the paths up. Again, I don't really think this is like too big of a guest area. However, it takes so much to figure out what to do in here. And I figure, like, I just imagine like my mom going out for a jog in, like, you know, the dead of morning, just around the entire property. It makes it really good for that. And yeah, we're kind of just putting down all the blueprints that we can. Again, I would love to get in depth with like all the custom building tools and stuff like that. However, this game, it makes it very much a struggle. It's very difficult to actually get building in those modular scenery tabs. Again, I really enjoy the fact that we do have them here. I think it's really great. However, it's going to require a lot of work to learn. And I say this in kind of like my review. I recorded 2 of them. I only posted 1. So I'm not sure if it actually came out or not, but I already learned how to build in Planet Zoo. I already learned how to build in Planet Coaster, and that took a while. You would think it would be easier coming from Planet Zoo into Planet Coaster. It is not. But from there, I can't jump into Jurassic World Evolution 3 knowing everything there is to know about it, unfortunately. However, I'm willing to learn. I am willing to learn at this rate because I've had such a fun time with this park so far. So another one of the things that I wanted to accomplish in here was making this kind of staff area towards the back, kind of like all the utilities that we would need, and mostly because I just want to play around with the Jeeps and stuff. Like, that's honestly my favorite part of this game. We have a bunch of awesome new fence pieces. I still need to make this look pretty later down the line. I figure we can do some kind of like background breeding facility for the disgusting little hybrids that come in this game. But yeah, I was just kind of playing around with what made the most sense, checking out some dinosaurs, and I'm kind of like, what do we include in this episode today, you know? So I do have this little compound back here. Again, it's nothing too crazy. I did this in my aquatic park all of those times ago. That was a super fun park that I made in Jurassic World Evolution 2 when we got the big aquatic pack. That was super fun. And part of the appeal of like doing these silly kind of little like hotel areas is making these, it's like these little trails on the side. I feel like Jurassic Park Paradise, you would have these nature trails where you could explore like so many of the biomes and so many like natural landscapes of the past. So I try and dot these with the cycad groves. I try and dot it with some tropical foliage as well, just to help keep it enclosed. Not only those, but I also do a bunch of swamp ones on the other side, and I also gussy it up a little bit with some benches and stuff later down the line. You'll see that in a bit. So another one things I wanted to include in here, and in terms of like the guest area, was that kind of like the petting zoo mechanic. I thought that was a super fun addition. So over here, I start making kind of like this enclosed valley. Again, I want this area to feel super naturalistic, super enclosed, and this is part of the appeal of that. It's these new terrain tools that kind of just seamlessly kind of grow rocks. I think it was so fun to kind of play around with this and make some interesting shapes. So that's kind of what we do in here. I go for I believe it's late Jurassic kind of look in here. So I have Brachiosaurus, I have Stegosaurus, and I have Dryosaurus. I think that was, actually no, it's like Apatosaurus or Diplodocus. I'm not really sure. We'll check that out in a little bit. But you can see what I do in here is kind of hide off those areas with rocks, because part of the appeal of this game now is kind of making these naturalistic habitats now, which is so fun. We don't have null fences. We have the invisible fences, which aren't really invisible. You can still see them. However, you can still kind of make sure that your dinosaurs don't wander into areas that you don't want them to by kind of just dressing those areas up with a bunch of rocks. The big rocks really come in handy. Okay, here I am looking for that Zoopedia. Like, I really thought there was a Zoopedia in here. I guess apparently not, and yeah. But I was able to find the one on the website, and I was able to kind of figure out what I wanted in here. So you can see I am making my Stegosauruses as fantastic as they can be, making my Diplodocus as incredible as they can be, and I went to find a good skin for the Dryosaurus as well. Again, I like to do the big mixes of colors sometimes, but I think for this park in particular, I really want to focus on some nice naturalistic and realistic looking dinosaurs. And I think the bright pink Dryosaurus really isn't going to do that for me this time around. So you can see I'm going throughout here and kind of decorating this habitat as much as I can. Again, still getting used to these building tools. I'm not really used to them whatsoever, but it's super fun just to be able to play with this stuff again. It's just, I don't know, it's making big parks that is so appealing about this game. Like in Planet Zoo, this entire habitat, that would take me kind of like 10 hours to make, you know? But in Jurassic World Evolution 3, I can do it in simply no time at all. It is kind of swanky. Okay, my biggest complaint over here is making these custom fences. Not the fact that I can make them, because it's so great that I can make them, but the fact that we have these big areas to kind of accomplish in this game and in this park, that it's very difficult to get the desired look that I really want. So you can see I kind of start that and I stop that because I cannot be bothered. Decorating just a little bit of this facility area, I'm gonna go in and make it look even prettier soon. I'm gonna add a whole bunch of like different kind of things in there. I don't know, make it look really industrial. But over here I start getting acclimated with the new blueprints. Again, I'm just using as many blueprints as I can just to come out with a very good looking park. And not only that, but I also wanted to include some babies in here, little babies. So I start to include a few nests in here, and I try and match the foliage as best I can to the surrounding area, just to make these areas feel very, very naturalistic. I don't know, I feel like these little patches of grass would be the perfect area for the Dryosaurus to kind of have babies in, kind of decorate it a little bit more with some rocks. Yeah, the rocks in this game are great. Also, I kind of complained in my review, quote unquote, video that there were no kind of like random rotation buttons. I found them the other day. I don't know how I was able to access them. I think it was in the move tab, and I'm also decorating the Diplodocus nest right over here as well, using a little bit more bigger rocks this time around. But yeah, I found the random rotation. I don't know how, and I can't find it again. So I have no idea what's happening over there, but that's very interesting. Kind of decorating the rest of the habitat up with some K-pop trees. Again, this is just a very simple building technique that I've done in Zoo, in Coaster, in pretty much any single building game, is use the big trees as a way to make very big foliage cover. I think that is a super fantastic way of accomplishing that. It's super easy. All right, here is that Jurassic tour. Once again, I'm just setting up the pieces for this, at least right now. It's really nothing crazy. I don't really do anything with this other than kind of get the layout started. You can see the full layout in just a little bit, but using those K-pop trees again once more over here. And this waterfall does look kind of sad right now. It does look kind of sad, but we dress it up in a bit. We start to use a lot more of those bigger rock pieces. Again, I have understood. Like, I went from starting this park with no idea what was going on to being a complete Jurassic master in like 0.2 seconds, because once you understand what the pieces are for, everything just flows together. You can see me start to use these big boulder pieces, which I want in Zoo so bad, to make these beautiful cascading like kind of landscapes and stuff like that. And from there, we start to decorate the rest of that kind of, not habitat, but like that environment up a little bit more, and it looks so good. Another thing I kind of found out was using these kind of like innovation center kind of sides, or is that the welcome center? I'm not really sure, but using those on the sides is a great way to make a bigger building at like no cost at all. I thought that was super fun. Adding a bunch of benches in here into the trail, because while I do like a good hiking trail that has like complete untampered wilderness, Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park Paradise, in our case over here, is very man-made. Like, there is not one naturalistic part about it. So I'm doing my best over here to make it feel at least very welcoming to guests who might want to enter onto the property. I thought that was super fun. And I have these little hiking trail signs. I really thought I could really mess with the fonts on here, but no, the fonts don't go that small for me. So I add a bunch of trailheads and like a bunch of trail signs in here just to make it come together a little bit more. And I found these awesome blueprints by Frontier. These are just like nice little patios where you can have your lunch or whatever. And yeah, I just start to decorate the entire park with these, because it just goes such a long way in making these areas feel just a little bit more interesting. I really like that stuff. From there, I'm just adding a bunch more facilities. I'm not really adding anything with any rhyme or reason. I'm kind of like, oh, this would be a nice area for a hotel. This would be a nice, decent area for a bathroom. So I start to add a few of these just to make it feel a little bit more robust. Give each area kind of like a purpose and kind of like a distinction as opposed to the next one over, you know? So adding a few more bits of foliage in here, and I also wanted to get a monorail in here because I want it to take you to a different part of the park that is all carnivores. I feel like that would be a super fun little episode to do once we actually do get to that. And yeah, it's just the start of something right over there, which is very nice. So we connect that up, we start to connect up the rest of the fences as well, and we start to decorate the outskirts and the perimeter of kind of like this right area of the park. The complete left area, I leave that mostly untouched because I don't really have a plan for it right now other than the ideas, and I start messing with the fences. Again, I like my custom fence over here. I can put it on the workshop if you guys really want it, but yeah. I just wish we had a spline tool or something like that for custom blueprints. I thought that would be really helpful for something like this, but oh well, hand placing it is. All right, here's a small little thing I'm doing on here is just dressing up the paths just to make it feel a little bit more worn down around like the utility road. I feel like I did not explain that too well. The idea behind that, or at least the idea behind that big gray path in the middle, would be the tour bus or like the transport bus would go all throughout that entire loop, and it could bring you to whatever location that you want on a prefix path. I I thought that would be a fun little addition, and Frontier, please, if you're listening, just more guest transportation options, because I feel like we're sorely lacking in those. I feel like that would be a really fun thing to have. But you can see right over here, I'm kind of dressing up the Jurassic tour. Again, this would probably be for like smaller carnivores and smaller animals because it is a much smaller blueprint, but maybe I could have it look into like a bigger dinosaur, maybe like I'm thinking Acrocanthosaurus, or maybe kind of like Spinosaurus, something like that, but kind of dressing that up a little bit more, adding those fences just to make it feel a little bit more realistic, again, more contained. I really want to make sure that this feels at least semi-realistic in the context of Jurassic Park as possible, so that's kind of what I'm doing right there. Now this is fun. This is where I'm channeling my inner S. Dan Wolf, and I saw he did get early access by checking out the Frontier workshop, so that's very exciting. But yeah, I'm making a stupid little rock wall in here. It is nothing crazy. I just really wanted to have this look, and that's my little person for scale right down there. That's on the workshop in case if you need reference for how big to make something. That is the perfect little item for that. But you can see I'm adding a whole bunch of like different like Tory gate handles in here, I guess. Again, this isn't really to scale, even though I'm like, oh, maybe if I put the person to scale right there, it'd come out a lot better. No, this is purely for aesthetics. This is purely for looks, and honestly, I'm kind of happy with it. I think it turned out very good. I think it's just a very big, nice focal point in here, and I think we need a lot more of these kinds of like activities in this park, if that makes sense. And so I placed this blueprint down. The blueprint with like all those benches on the top, which is very cool. I love the blueprint system. No, not the blueprint, the bench system in this game. Because believe it or not, the guests actually sit on them, which is so fun to see. Like having your guests on the top of that little rock climbing wall after they finish like climbing up the entire thing. I think that is super fun, super stupid, but I love it. It's so cute. However, it's that single damn bench that kind of sparks something in me where it's like, hey, I could use this throughout the park. So I end up doing that. I place them down every freaking where. Like these are the perfect little benches to include. Again, could I have done something custom? I absolutely could have. Would it made more sense for me to do something custom? It absolutely would have. However, again, I just want to get used to Jurassic World Evolution 3, and I won't get used to it unless if I start to use what's in the game. So I start to decorate these little plazas in here. I start to decorate like the welcome area. I start to decorate these little areas with fountains. Like it's starting to make these little focal points and starting to really fill out these areas to make them feel just a little bit more robust, make them feel a little bit more purposeful. And I'm very happy with it all. I am super happy with it because look how great this area starts to come together. Once the guests are flowing through here, once the fountains are there, I love those little raptor statues. They're the cutest. But adding them all over, like at the welcome center, well, yeah, that's the welcome center. I keep getting the welcome center and the innovation center mixed up, but adding them there, adding them to like this little hotel area right over there. This is starting to come out so good, and I was like, I really want this nice rocky facade towards the edge of that big kind of habitat over there. And I also add a few more to this habitat just to make it feel a little bit more interesting, I suppose. So adding a bunch of benches pretty much everywhere where I can fit is kind of the name of the game over here, especially near the gentle giants kind of area. And not only that, but I'm like, screw it. We're going full seating in here. We start to include a bunch of those little kind of like seating areas, like with the umbrellas. It just makes an area come together so much more. And yeah, we basically get on this whole seating train for the next kind of 5 minutes, but I'm going to take this time to talk about how like this game is perceived as a Planet Zoo player, because I know that's the majority of my audience on my channel, I believe. And by the way, like we are so close to 50,000 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. Like you guys make this hobby so fun. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. But as a Planet Zoo player, this game gets so close. Like this game gets relatively close to the level of detail I would like out of this game. This is fun. Yeah, I bet you guys can't guess what I'm about to do right now. But yeah, Planet Zoo, it's like that game to me, it's so fun to get worked up in the details. However, Jurassic World Evolution, it's a lot more high level It's a lot more big scale, and I like that. I really do like that. I think it's super fun to be able to work with that. However, I think it's very difficult as a Planet Zoo player to kind of get integrated into this game. I think that is a big factor of this that I think is something that's very important to keep in mind. As a Planet Zoo player, I kind of struggled with the first building parts of Jurassic World Evolution 3, and like even the other Jurassic World Evolutions. I'm sure many other Planet Zoo players have picked up JWE and been like, this is nothing like Planet Zoo, and that's because it really isn't. It really wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be a kind of like dinosaur simulator. It really is kind of like a JPOG of the current times, I suppose. So yeah, it's just important to learn that you need to get acclimated to a new style of game. And yeah, we're making a food truck. We are making a food truck, absolutely. Kind of crazy how we don't have one in here. And again, this is on the workshop right now for you guys to use. I thought it was a fun little addition. We have this little ketchup stand, and we have a bunch of trash because I feel like that would be a very common kind of expectation to have in here. And we use a bunch of benches as well. I like how that looks. But yeah, like it's not Planet Zoo at all, but I think it's absolutely worth a shot if you haven't tried this game out before. Again, like you can go ahead and skip 1 and 2. 1 story is pretty good. I genuinely do like 1 story. I like 2 story as well. I think the chaos mode was really fun. However, if you're just looking for a normal experience, you gotta upgrade to the 3rd version. You're not really missing much if you skip out on like the DLCs and like the other stuff from JWE 2 and JWE 1, except for like a John Hammond voice actor or whatever. So yeah, I have these food trucks all over. I think this would be kind of like the name brand of food truck throughout here. I think it's a super cute idea, and I'm very happy with it. I also do some custom planters in here as well. So yeah, like if I could recommend Jurassic World Evolution 3 to Planet Zoo players, I absolutely would. But it's just important to keep in mind it's not Planet Zoo. And it's not Planet Coaster either. The only things that it really has similar to Planet Coaster is the fact that they're scaling, I guess. And the only thing similar to Planet Zoo is there's animals, I guess. Still, it's like a completely different system. The path system. Like, honestly, I do not like JWE's paths whatsoever, and I know I'm probably breaking Evolution Square's heart to think about that, but, like, I don't know, I prefer the kind of, like, clunky, chunky style of Planet Coaster 2. I think you can do so much more with that, and I think the finicky path system in the Jurassic World Evolution franchise, like, engine isn't really the best. I'm not really a big fan. Now, this is one of the things I barely do, but I really, really want to accomplish this time, was doing some light work. You can see throughout here, I'm using a bunch of blue lights, kind of hugging in the middle of the outside guest path and the kind of interior, whatever you call it, the utility path, I suppose. So I add a bunch of lights in here just as a way to kind of make these areas be very illuminated and just give it a little bit more detail. It's kind of dual focused. So I add a little bit more detail with some kind of like path textures, and there we go. You can see the controls tab on the left over there. I don't know how I got that. That's crazy. But I add a bunch of lights in there. Blue kind of like hugging the inside of these guest path areas. And I do yellow on the inside, kind of like towards the center of the park and near attractions. Kind of like these, like the trails near the picnic areas, near the, like, you know, the food trucks, all that stuff. So it really helps areas really have their own light and have their own look about them. I think it's a super fun way of kind of accomplishing that. There's the guest tornado. I completely ignore it after that. I'm like, okay, I guess this is what the game's doing now. So besides that, I also add some kind of lights to the trails as well. Just very subtle orange lights. Again, I really want each area to feel very distinct in itself. I really want each area to feel very bright, and I think these flexi-colored lights do so good at that. That's something that I'm taking for granted over here. It's the fact that we actually have flexi-color in this game. Like, that is crazy to me. But after adding a bunch more details in here and a bunch more pathways, you can see that we finally are done. So enjoy some closing shots of this park. Welcome to Jurassic Park Paradise. Again, we really didn't do much in here, but we did a lot of stuff, and I think that's a huge testament to how robust these pieces are. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy, let me know in the comments down below. I'm very curious to hear what you guys think about this game so far. Is this something that you're thinking of picking up? Is this something that you're enjoying seeing so far? Let me know in the comments below. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video on Jurassic World Evolution 3. Take care, and goodbye.